Hello everyone, Ben here and welcome back to iRacing for our debut in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. We are in the McLaren GT4 running in a multi-class championship here, GT4 cars together with touring cars. Now the grid we've lined up in this week in Hockenheim is only GT4 cars. There were no Audi touring cars entered, but there is a good field of 19 GT4 cars that are going to make the start of this race. We there are just at the front of the field, starting in second, but on the front row in our McLaren GT4 alongside BMW, and there are also Porsches on the grid as well. We had a good qualifying, but it's fair to say that Pierce, who's in the Pertec BMW up ahead of us, was a fair chunk of time quicker than we were, so it may be that we're looking in our rear view mirror a bit more than we are looking up the road, but we will find out because we're about to go green and get the race underway. Here we are then in cockpit as we start what is then a 30-minute race. No mandatory stop, no refueling, there shouldn't be any tyre changes. The only reason we'll head into the pits is if we get involved into an accident and need to stop for repairs, but hopefully that won't happen as we get through the first corner nice and clean. Car still coming up to temperature, so as ever on iRacing you've got to be pretty careful into the first couple of corners, indeed for the first couple of laps. You'll notice the car moving around a little bit in the braking zone, particularly in these first laps, although it is a bit of a characteristic I've found of this McLaren GT4. It's quite nimble in the corners, but it does move around a little bit in the braking zone. Get the speed off the car then into the hairpin for the first time. We've got about a second up the road to Pierce here, and then we've got Nicholas Vandenberg behind in third place, about a second back from us. So far so good as we come into the second half of this lap at the Hockenheim ring. Now I might have mentioned this in previous videos that I've done at this circuit, but I find the second half of this lap, in particular the stadium section, really very challenging indeed, and that is something which I'm contending with all race long here. We're going to come through it for the first time here then, so into the right hander here, try and get the car slowed down. I take probably a little bit too much curb there, to be honest, and give away some exit speed, but it's this corner right here which is slightly off camber. We're trying to get into the banking and get on the accelerator as soon as you can, but it pushes you wide, and I just found all race long that other drivers were able to get much more speed through that corner. Try and take an early apex there, hug the outside line, and then into the second apex of that corner, and that's not a bad run through the final corner actually. It's probably about as good as we make it all race long. You can see there Pierce weaving as he crossed the start finish line to just try and get some heat in his tyres. We take a little bit too much curb coming into that first corner, and we are essentially holding station at the moment, which is no bad thing actually. I mean, I was expecting Pierce to clear off essentially into the distance, as he does seem to have the pace of the field. We've dropped Van der Berg behind us by about 1.2 seconds. We're coming down then the back straight, and really I need to be another couple of tenths closer to Pierce up ahead if we're going to benefit from the slipstream. We're probably just sitting outside of it at the moment, so it's very crucial really that I don't let him get any further away than he is at the minute if I've got any aspirations of taking the lead in this race. We've closed in, we've had a better trip through the hairpin than him here, so we are now within half a second as we come to the second half of this lap. We're going to try and get on the brakes nice and late here, just keep the car nice and balanced. He takes far too much curb on the inside there of the left-hander. We're going to come into the right-hander, and he just about gets a clean line through that corner, but we are right on his rear wing here, and we've managed to drop the car behind slightly as well. He's going to get on the brakes slightly late. It looks like he's unbalanced the car and he's out onto the gravel. That's going to give us a chance to get alongside him and past him into the left-hander here. Can we hold the apex? It looks like we can, although we're still struggling to get the car to bite, and we're up into first position as we come around to end the second lap of this race. Well, that is unexpected given where the qualifying pace was, but a really nice surprise that we've been able to capitalise on that error from Pierce and take the lead of the race. Of course, I'm under no illusions at this stage of the race. I know that Pierce's pace hasn't just disappeared. I mean, I suppose there's a chance it was a fluke lap in qualifying, but if you look to the top left-hand corner of the screen, his I rating is significantly higher than ours. He's 1.7 thousand and we're 1.2, and already there he's trying to make a move down into the second corner of the lap, and we get a little bit of contact there, and I'm hoping at this stage that hasn't given us any damage. It feels like the car is handling okay, and we've got away with it. We didn't pick up an incident point for that. We are still on 0x, so clearly it's attributing that to Stephen just getting on the brakes a little bit too late, certainly later than we did. We're into the hairpin again then, and we just about hold it through there. He is right on our rear wing at this stage. He's just half a second back. We've got a little bit more of a gap to Nicholas in third, who's 1.5 seconds back, and at the moment I am just trying to stay calm behind the wheel. Really, I'm under no real pressure, because at the end of the day I do think Pierce is the faster driver, so if he's going to come past us, then really I just want that to happen in a way which doesn't cause us any damage. We're not getting pushed out onto the gravel or anything like that, and so we're coming into the stadium section again. We are a little bit lazy on turn in. That's going to allow him to close right in again as we're coming into this tricky left-hander. Get the car slowed down, full steering lock, and I still can't get the car accelerated in the way that I would like, but it does look as if we're going to hold the lead again then as we come around to the end of lap 3, and we're about 5 minutes in to this 30-minute race, and we are indeed going to come across to finish this lap in the lead of the race. It'll be interesting to see here what Pierce's pace looks like. We've set a fastest lap time on the last lap of a 1:48.3. Pierce there only setting a 1:49.4, and we are marginally quicker than the drivers in third and fourth. So we've had a good start to the race, but look at that, just as I was saying that, we get into the braking zone. We don't cut across the nose of Pierce coming behind us, because I was conscious he was about to come alongside us as he'd done in the previous lap, and not really wanting to lose too much speed. We make that pretty easy for him, to be fair. I didn't defend that very hard at all. We're going to see though what he's made of down the straight, because we are very much in his slipstream. I'm going to show to the outside, but then honestly I think better of it and took back underneath his rear wing. My main interest in this race, particularly because it's a longer race, it's our first in the McLaren GT4, is just trying to run a clean and sensible race. I don't really want to get involved in anything, particularly not at this early stage, which is going to see us with damage. I think I would have acted differently if I'd managed to pass Pierce on track on merit, but the fact that it was a small mistake from him made me think better of it, because I still think he's got the better pace, even though we were able to hold the lead of the race for a good couple of laps. Into the stadium section then again, he gets the car slowed down nicely this time and rotated. He's slightly quicker than us through the right-hander, and we're going to get into the braking zone again, into this tricky left turn. If you look down at the relative board, you'll see that the top 4 have essentially broken away now. We've got Lewis Koenig in 5th, who's a good 13 seconds down on us, which means he's 14 seconds off the lead of this race now. So we do have a little bit of breathing space from 4th to 5th, but we are occupying 2nd place as we cross the line then to end that lap. Let's take a little look back then at how those opening laps played out from some of the replay footage. Here we are running in 2nd place, coming into the stadium section. Pierce is going to run wide. He does very well to hold the car actually, and just let it roll back onto the track rather than mashing the throttle pedal and probably spinning. But it does mean that we're able to sneak past and up into the lead of the race as we come around to finish the lap. He will have dirty tyres at this point, so very difficult for him to strike back immediately and make the pass. So he has to tuck back in and think better of it. But you can see, just as I was mentioning before, the top 4 really have broken away in this race, and it feels good to be running at the front on genuine pace and be able to be part of the leading pack. Here Pierce though is thinking about trying to make a move back into this right-hander, or is he in fact? I think more than anything he maybe just overestimated underestimates our ability to get on the gas. There wasn't really an overtake manoeuvre there. It was more, he wasn't expecting us to be as slow out of the corner. Got better exit speed, better traction than we did, and he just gave us a little tap from behind. Thankfully, nothing too serious. We're going to come down then into the hairpin, spot our braking point just before the 150-metre board, and you'll see just as the cars concertina up together how close we all are. Pierce has got a wider exit line than we do from that corner. Cut a little bit further then onto the end of the lap, and we're coming around still in the lead of this race, but with 3 cars in hot pursuit, and you can see that Pierce is really very close to our rear wing as we're coming around the final corner. He's thinking about shaping for a move down into T1, but it's a very difficult place to pass. You have to be all the way alongside really when you cross the start finish line to have any chance at all of making a move stick there. But here he comes, he shows nice and early. I'm aware of the fact that he's going to try and get down our inside. In the braking zone he's fully alongside, so I don't try and close that off, as that might result in an accident. So I just play it safe, even though it compromises me a little bit on exit. I know I'm going to get the slipstream back from him down this long straight, and so I just settle for tucking in underneath his rear wing and seeing if I can't get a little bit of a slingshot down into the hairpin itself. But then I think better of that and just live to fight another day. I'm pretty confident of being able to hold second. I wasn't that confident of being able to hold first, and so we settle back into our race rhythm. Here we go then, we rejoin just coming up to the 10-minute mark in the race, and Pierce, as predicted, has managed to get away from us slightly. He's now about 2 seconds, give or take, further up the road. Unfortunately for us, Vandenberg behind has closed in on us just a little bit. We've had a scruffy sort of end to the previous lap, which has allowed him to close up on our rear wing, and even though it doesn't look it in our rear view mirror, he is now less than half a second behind us. So I've got to just be mindful coming into the hairpin here that we might be very close on exit to the turn. He tries to swoop down our inside and we get a little hit. In fact, we get quite a big hit towards the exit of that corner, and at this point I'm really concerned that we're going to have picked up some damage. It felt to me like he basically drove into the side of us, and that then could easily have seen us pick up some quite heavy damage. It looks as if I'm able to turn the wheel and I'm able to get on the gas, and we haven't lost one of our 4 wheels, so I think we're good to continue. It looks as if Vandenberg might not be as lucky. He's dropped to around 8 seconds down on us now if you look at the relative board in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and it's Cabezon behind us now in 3rd place. But that felt to me like it kind of came from nowhere. I think we were slightly deep into the hairpin, which might have given him the sense that he could make a move down our inside, but I was never going to be able to vanish on the corner exit, so he still would have had to get some of that speed off the car, and we'll see it in a little while on the replay footage to just what happened there and whether it was a fair attempt at a move or just a little bit reckless. But as things stand, at least we're able to keep moving in the right direction. It's cost us another couple of seconds to pierce up the road, and we'll only find out really in the next lap or two whether it has significantly slowed our car down. For the time being, I've got the prospect of Cabezon behind us now to worry about. He's half a second down on us, so again is in that same sort of window that Vandenberg was just a lap ago. As we come into the hairpin, we get the car turned in reasonably nicely, but again you can see the driver behind is fancying a move down our inside, and it's becoming clear to me now that we might just be a little bit slow into that corner. Whether it was damage picked up from that tap from Pierce or now damage from that latest incident, it is now feeling like the car is a little bit of a handful. I'm having to apply more steering lock in order to get the car around corners, and at this stage of the race I'm feeling like I'm now going to be in a real battle to hold on to at least 2nd place. The gap back to 4th now, as I mentioned earlier in the race, that's now Lewis Koenig, who's been promoted up into 4th from 5th, is 13 seconds, so even if I'm carrying a little bit of damage, a bit of minor damage, it should be something that we can ride out over the rest of this race, even though we've got more than half of it still to go. Providing I'm not losing seconds upon seconds of lap time, then fingers crossed I won't necessarily be under pressure from Koenig by the end of the race, even if I'm in a very stiff battle now with Cabazon behind me, who thinks better then of going side by side through T1. We're a bit ragged on the exit of that corner, and we drift wide, picking up our second incident point of the race. We then get the car slowed down nicely, decent apex there to get onto the main straight, heading into the hairpin once more. Again, the gap still just half a second back to Cabazon. So I know I'm going to have to be looking in my mirrors. All I'm going to try and do here is keep to my regular line. I know really that he needs to be a little bit closer to us to have a realistic chance of getting past. I mean, he might send a dive bomb down, but that would put us at risk and him at risk, as we've already seen in this race. Thankfully, he thinks better of it, and I think at this stage of the race, he might well have already sensed that we are slow through the stadium section, and therefore maybe his best bet of getting past us will be to try and follow closely through that part of the racetrack. We take a better apex then through the left-hander. We are just putting a few tenths on Cabazon behind us as we come through that part of the track, but here comes the most difficult section for me, and as you'll see in the rear view mirror, he is able to just close up on us as we come through this part of the track. Get the car slowed down, turn in on the left-hander, but he's looming larger and larger in our rear view mirror, and that isn't just because of the concertina effect, it's because he's running quicker than we are through these corners. And in fact, we get that all wrong, and look at that, I'm having to get right off the gas, try and get the car turned in as it's drifting wide. He's going to get all the way alongside us then as we come out onto the start-finish straight. He is right alongside us then. If you look at our radar in the right-hand corner of the screen, and we make contact heading into the first corner. He's up on two wheels briefly, we've spun around, and we just about keep the car moving, and thankfully once again it looks like we've avoided any substantial damage. We haven't got the meatball flag, we don't get called into the pit lane, but that was the biggest contact yet. And having spent the early parts of this race telling you that what I was really after was just a safe and sensible straightforward race, that's our third bit of contact in 15 minutes. Let's go back then and look at the second piece of contact. Here we are running in second place, defending from Nicholas behind us, who's moved to within half a second. Pierce a couple of seconds up the road at this stage, and then Cabazon, who we've just been battling with, sitting in fourth place. We're going to come into this braking zone then, into the hairpin, and just look at the line that the driver behind us takes then. We are just a little bit deep into the corner. He switches back underneath us, but then look at that. I'm not sure he's making that corner if we're not there to essentially straighten his car up. We'll try and have a look from the onboards and just see whether that sheds any light onto the incident. Here he comes then. He's going to try. He gets the car slowed down nicely. He's into the apex, but the angle his car's at there, I'm just not convinced that he doesn't go and take essentially to the runoff area if we're not there to get him pointed in the right direction on the racetrack. We'll see though that he gets really big damage from that collision. He can't turn the car, he's having to take to the runoff area, and that is going to require a pit stop for him. Here we go then into the stadium section as we're coming under pressure from Cabazon. You can see just how quickly he's been able to close up to us. I do suspect then that our pace has been affected by these bits of contact. We're really struggling through some of these corners. It was a bit of a struggle anyway, but it's particularly a bit of a struggle now as we're trying to defend from the driver behind. He gets a very decent run out from behind us there as we're coming across the start finish line, but it's not going to be enough for him to make a move on this lap. He thinks better of it and he just tucks in behind us. Not so the very next lap. You can see he's already much further alongside us than he was previously. He's going to come then, and he is all, in fact, I think looking at that back, that's our fault. We should have conceded the position. It wasn't that clear cut, it felt, in the car. It felt like we were much more closely measured alongside one another, but I actually think he is through and ahead of us by the time we reach the corner. From his onboard, as we're just looking at now, you can barely tell that we made contact, but this is the view from our onboard, and you can see there he is all the way and more alongside us. We turn into him is the truth of the matter, and it would have been a much more sensible decision to just concede the corner, particularly as we were thinking we were carrying a bit of damage. And I think actually I got very lucky there not to cause a much bigger accident, and thankfully Cabazon got through unscathed. It seems so anyway, because he's been able to build an 8-second gap to us. We then were running much more slowly, really putting in lap times a good 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds slower than our potential pace. And what that has meant is that as we come into the final stage of this race here, 5 minutes left to go, Lewis Koenig in 4th place has caught right up to our rear wing. We had a massive gap, you'll remember, 12-13 seconds back to him earlier in the race, and it's now half a second. We haven't made any big mistakes, we haven't been off track. We just don't have the pace that we did earlier in the race, thanks to those bits of contact and those incidents. So we are now really in a battle to hold him off, and just behind him Andreas Frederick is closing in as well. He's just about a further 1.5 seconds back on Koenig, so from what was looking like a comfortable podium, as look at this, Koenig is almost, he is alongside us. In fact, he certainly got his front the front of his car alongside our rear wing, rear tyre there, but we were able to just hold him off by sticking to the racing line. There really isn't much room for two cars to go through there. He's going to get a better exit than us. He's probably going to struggle to close in and get alongside for this first corner, but actually he's making good progress in doing it. Thankfully he gets on the brakes and thinks better of it. So as things stand then, we've gone from a comfortable podium, or what looked like a comfortable podium, to now being in a position where we could finish 5th, which would be a real shame given the pace that we've got. It does look, if you look at the relative board in the bottom right hand corner, like there has been a swap of position there. So Koenig maybe made a mistake into the first corner, but he's let Frederick past. So Frederick is now the car that is going to be putting the challenge on us, but he is a good 1.5 seconds down on us now. I think my only chance really here of holding on to this podium position is if Frederick and Koenig end up in a bit of a battle, and that is what looks like it has happened now. They're about a few tenths of a second away from one another, and we've got about a 1.5 seconds gap back to them fighting over 4th place. I can't really afford to fight either of them on track, but having said that, I've made a mistake into the left-hander. We've just outbraked ourselves. We couldn't get the car turned in, and that then is going to allow both of them to close up on our rear wing, which is not what we need. I'd just given myself a little bit of breathing space by holding off Koenig on the previous lap, and now I'm going to be under pressure from both of them as we come into the stadium section. We're going to try and brake as late as we can, get the car turned in, but you can see the car is just not responding to my inputs. I just haven't got the hang of that at all. We're up on the curb on the outside. I do swoop back onto the racing line. I think fair enough, he wasn't alongside me, Frederick, so I was able to do that, get the car turned in just about for these final couple of corners, and it does then mean that we're going to hold on to the lead at least for this lap. We've got 2.5 minutes left of this race, so potentially only a couple more racing laps left to do. Frederick and Koenig continuing to fight with each other. We're again wide into that first corner. That's another incident point. We've picked up 5x now for the race, a limit of 25, so we shouldn't be in any danger of getting disqualified. Get the car slowed down and turned in. It looks as if Frederick behind us ran slightly wide on exit, so he might come under pressure from Koenig then as we come down into the hairpin. I should have a big enough gap back to Frederick at around 8/10 of a second here, but it might be close because we're just so cumbersome now into the corners, given the contact that we've had earlier in the race. But as predicted, it looks as if they're fighting one another, so that's going to be scrubbing speed off them and handing it to me in this battle. Again, we've made a second gap back to Frederick here, as it looks as if the two of them are scrapping over that position. We're coming into the left-hander now, then just try to keep it nice and clean. They're side by side, and it looks as if one of them at least has ran off the circuit there. They've dropped back a further half a second on me as we come into the stadium section then, with just a minute left on the race clock. We're going to get the car turned in. 2 seconds now, the gap back to Frederick. So maybe we have got ourselves the bit of breathing space that we wanted to get for this final couple of laps. We're going to come through the remainder of the stadium section and just trying to take it easy. The tyres beginning to feel a little bit second hand here as well, as the damage we've had to the car, and it looks as if just in the corner of my rear view mirror there, it looked like Frederick was taken to the pit lane, and yes, he's dropped way back. Let's then have a look at that action on the replay then, as we're getting pressurised here. We're the lead car. It's Koenig just behind us. He then comes across the first corner there. He thinks better of making a move on us, but he's going to be trying to put pressure on us into this right-hander here. He's not going to be able to get alongside us, so then he's just going to settle into our slipstream down into the hairpin, onto the second half of the lap. He's closed right in on us as we're coming through into the second part of the lap. He thinks about a move there, but he's just not close enough to us to make it stick. He runs slightly wide on exit, but he's carrying more speed than we are through these corners, and he's going to be right on our rear wing as we come into the stadium section here then. Can I hold it together? Well, I'm able to defend from him through this part of the circuit just by making my car wide enough that he can't get past, but you can see he's all over the back of us. He's definitely got more speed than we do, but catching is one thing, passing is another, as Murray Walker would say. He's nearly alongside us, but thankfully he gets on the brakes, otherwise we would have made contact. Fair play to him for pulling out of that move as we come around then onto the start finish straight, and he's going to be closing in on us all the time here. Look at the launch he gets off that final corner compared to us. He's right underneath our rear wing. He shows to the inside, but he's not close enough. It's not like Cabazon a couple of laps earlier, and it looks then like he might cut the corner. And I wonder then if it's that corner cut, either he gets a time penalty, he must get a time penalty, that he then has to give back, which allows then Frederick to come past him in the other BMW. That then is going to set up the fight between the two of them. We make a small error though, that puts them both onto our rear wing, coming then through into the stadium section. And look at how close the three of us are running. And both of them must be thinking a podium is up for grabs here. They try and get down our inside, but we're on the racing line there. It's our corner. So if there'd been any contact, that would definitely not have been our fault through that section of the track. Look at the pressure that Koenig's then putting on Frederick as we come across the start-finish line here. He wants that place back. He must be gutted that he had to concede it in the first place, but he's just not close enough to make a move into T1. But he is close enough coming out of the hairpin the next lap. Let's see how this plays out behind us then. We saw that something happened. Here he goes, Koenig down the inside. He's going to try and get the car slowed down, and Frederick is just trying to take the apex, but he manages to make contact with the rear of Koenig's car. I think it's a racing incident. I'm not sure there's too much deliberate in any of that. It's just an unfortunate one where they've come together, and then seemingly a late move from Frederick to come into the pit lane. I don't know whether that's because he had damage that needed to be fixed. Maybe he got the meatball flag from that collision, but either way he comes into the pit lane. As you can see, the white flag waving to signal that we were heading onto the final lap of the race. That's a lapped car up ahead of us then, Butty up ahead. Koenig is dropped to 4 seconds behind us, so we are going to ultimately hold on to third place in this race. It was an endurance in many respects, even though the time of the race was only 30 minutes, but running for so long with a wounded car after those bits of contact was really hard work, but we've managed to hold on in the end, and we come home with a podium position in our GT4 IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge debut, and I've got to be happy with that, as we see then the off-board shot of our car coming across to take the checkered flag. A really good crop of championship points, 75 championship points in the bag, and really looking forward to taking to the track for the remainder of the season. Watkins Glen is up next. I hope you've enjoyed the race. If you have, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.